Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today you are joining me to talk about a recent win that I had with one of my clients. She is a consultant in the wellness industry, and I'm going to talk about how she got 2 bookings, basically 2 new clients from a video that only had 250 views at the time. This is a huge win. So we're going to talk about how she did this within her YouTube podcast, right? So this wasn't a educational video. This was not something that was within a strategy. This was a podcast episode, something that comes out every week, and she is now seeing a lot of traction that typically comes when people get to about, I would say in my experience, 500 subscribers, and she is in the 200 subscriber range as well. So we're going to dive in. This is going to be more of a casual video. It's super hot out today. I might get red as I continue talking, but we're just going to roll with it. So I am going to lay out basically 4 key points that I noticed in this video that are different from her previous videos and possibly might be different from what you hear makes a video successful, or a video successful in the sense of getting actual money and sales from your content. So the first thing I want to talk through is the structure of the video. This is the number one thing that I noticed that was different from her previous videos, that had a very specific layout that I think is kind of a map to being successful in your first 2 minutes, right? So a lot of people you might hear talk about the first 90 seconds of your video being the most critical, and I do agree with that. However, there takes a certain science in getting your first 90 seconds to be really spot on, especially for sales. And this is something that I wanted to lay out to you right now. I'm basically going to give you the formula, okay? So what she started out with, and I'm going to actually just read off my notes here, is she introduced the subject matter of the video with anticipation. Basically anticipation in the sense of what is coming up in this video that is gonna bring excitement and engagement. It was basically a really good hook. And this was about the first 5 to 10 seconds. She then welcomed the audience into her world, just told people what she does, what she's all about, what makes her different, right? This is an important piece. As you welcome people into your world, after you hook them in, you wanna emphasize why you're different from other people doing the same thing. What makes you unique, and how exactly you stand in the industry you stand in, and why you are worth listening to. The next thing, which was about maybe 20 seconds in, was an overview of the subject matter. So it was basically like, this is what we're going to dive into today. So it went from hooking you in, like anticipation, filling you, the viewer, with anticipation of what's to come, welcoming you into the world of what she does, and saying, this is what I do, this is my approach, welcome to the podcast episode, right? Then she went into the subject matter, what she's covering that day. And not only did she do that, but she weaved in why the subject matter is important to listen to, okay? So there are 2 things here that she's already doing. She's already tying you in with the hook, and she's telling you why the subject matter matters to you, why it's important. Right? So there's 2 elements in this first 2 minutes, right? We're still in the first 2 minutes of why you should continue watching. And I think this is a critical piece, even though this might not be directly related to sales itself. It's a critical piece because the more somebody watches you, they technically are paying you with their time to hear what you have to say, to build their relationship with you when you're just making a video, right? They're building a relationship with you. And at the very end of the 2 minutes, the 2 minutes of introduction, right? She left off with a very personalized, quick, streamlined call to action that led people to a more personalized experience of the subject matter, if that makes sense. Which in her case is one-to-one consultations. So just to wrap it all up, because I want you guys to have this formula yourself, so this is what it was. It was intro with anticipation, right? So it's basically the hook. A welcome into your world, which also drives authority, right? It tells people why you're different. Oh, okay, you're this, and this is what you do, and this is how you do it. An overview of the subject matter and why it's important, right? We want to include that in the subject matter, why this is important. And lastly, the call to action, very quick, streamlined, like maybe 5 seconds worth of a call to action to your more personalized experience, right? Like just kind of saying, hey, if you guys are interested, look at the description below. I have more information on how you can get a more personalized version of me. So another thing about the structure, before we move on to the next point, is that she included one more call to action at the end of her video that was more like 30 seconds to 1 minute long. Now, this was something I recommended to her that she do. I am a content strategist, if you don't already know. We do bi-weekly consultations, and I mentioned to her, hey, this is something that you can do at the end because your most engaged people are listening the whole way through, right? You want to give them a little taste in the beginning because that's still people who might trail off. And then at the end, give them a way more detail-oriented explanation of what you do exactly, right? And I do believe that this formula was a huge element to why she got 2 clients. Because before this, I didn't have this structure in place for her yet, because I am doing this in steps with her to extrapolate on content strategy, creation tactics, and all of that. So we didn't even get to this point yet until now. And she just started implementing it, and this is her first time getting these bookings from her podcast on YouTube. So this structure, I believe, is a big piece of how she got 2 new clients from 1 video at 250 views. If you're interested in learning about how I structure my method for content creation and strategy, I actually take you through a 5-week program, just like I'm doing for this client right now. And you can learn more about that in the description. Second element to her success that I believe was a key to her getting these 2 clients was urgency. I know you probably didn't expect that, but it is not really urgency in the way that you might think. So what do I mean by urgency if I don't mean it in the way of like dramatic, right? Like this is basically non-dramatic urgency, okay? That's kind of a good way to put it. But the more that you can basically call in urgency with time, urgency with clarity, urgency with getting to a certain outcome, that is what we want to emphasize. So throughout this episode, she was really tapped into her expertise providing clarity during a certain time frame, right? So she was meeting her audience where they were at, which is basically anticipating this thing that is to come given time. And she basically emphasized that, hey, my expertise can actually help you during this time because this was the subject matter. So she was touching on why this matters even more throughout the episode, right? Have we said that in the beginning? That was part of the structure. So she was touching way more deep into why this matters and why it's important right now. And a key point with this urgency of always touching on why it matters and why it's important is to always follow it up with your authority, which is basically your knowledge, okay? I hope that makes sense. So instead of just saying, here's why this matters, follow up your claims with what you know, what you're good at, and how it makes sense to you logically given what you know in your field, right? Like you are the expert, so therefore you know why this matters, and all you have to do is hit that home. And that's really what I mean by always touching on why and urgency and providing expertise clearly with emphasis on why it matters and where you're coming from, and putting a little bit of urgency behind that. So the third thing that was involved in this video that most people try to do, or they try to attempt to remember to do this, but this is something she has actually made into a section in her podcast episode, okay? And it's community highlighting. And this is really involving highlighting a particular community member in a certain way, whether it is what they said in a comment, what they said in a video, what they said in a DM, a reply to you based on what you've said. And the reason that I believe that this is an element to her getting 2 bookings from this video is because there's something psychologically involved when you are watching 2 people relate to a subject matter, because all it is doing is it's proving authority and it's seeing her expertise in action. Does that make sense? When you highlight your community in any way, and it really depends on your niche and what you do. But when you're highlighting a community member, you are most likely responding, giving your expertise, responding in a way of providing value. All that is doing is allowing people to see your authority in action. And that is really the point here with this. The more you can highlight your community, the more you're giving people the opportunity to see you in action with other people. And it's basically the most inspirational type of content that you could provide, right? Because it's basically, it's the closest thing to a case study without it being a case study that you could give your audience, right? It's basically responding to somebody, and it also makes that line non-existent of what people feel like they can engage with you and if it's actually going to resonate with you, if that makes any sense. So if you are somebody who decides to highlight your community, you're basically making it much more desirable for your community and your audience to comment and to engage with you, because there's a chance that you could highlight them and help them and provide value to them. And I do think that this is a big piece of why she is seeing success on a video that most would think is low viewership. All right, we are at the last key point, and that is relatability. So this video tied in real life experience. It was educational in the 101 sense. She included her personality, which did involve like swearing and whatever came to her mind. And she also provided supportive subject matter that wasn't directly related to the subject matter itself, but it supported her claims and supported the conversation in many ways, okay? So there are basically 4 things that I just said, so let's break them down. I said the relatability piece overall means that she tied in real life experience. She was educational in the 101 sense, right? Meeting people where they're at, especially if they don't know much about the subject matter that she's talking about. She showed her personality, so that means she sweared, she said certain words that are just part of her personality. And lastly, she supported the subject matter with other subject matter that wasn't related to the direct theme or subject of the video. So she had like outside sources, right? Outside sources that were related to the subject matter that supported the talk. And all that does is it again uplifts her authority. It shows people that like, hey, she's not only knowledgeable in this subject matter, but she's tying in other things here that make more sense to maybe someone else who's coming from a different side of the industry, right? And so the more that you can be relatable to your audience, the more they are going to feel like they can connect with you, right? And if you add in all of these elements that I mentioned in this video, I want to say you will see success. Can't promise that to you, but you're going to be far more ahead than most people are, okay? And why don't we wrap this up again and just outline exactly what I said in this video, just so you can maybe take notes and understand where you can go next with your content, okay? So remember, number 1 was structure. And that structure was a hook, a welcome into her world, driving authority, right? Overview of subject matter and why it's important, and then a quick call to action to get a more personalized experience, okay? This was all in under 2 minutes. Another piece of the structure was a 30-second to 1-minute call to action at the end of the video. The next thing I covered was urgency, right? Urgency in the sense of time, in the sense of clarity, in the sense of why it matters, right? When you can kind of combine time, clarity, why it matters, and following that up with your authority of why it matters, that is when you get an engaged audience throughout your entire video. The next thing I covered was community, right? The more you highlight your community, the more they feel like they want to engage, because you could potentially provide value to them at some point if you decide to highlight them. This element of highlighting your community also basically shows your audience the closest thing to what it's like to work with you. The last thing I mentioned was relatability, and this ties in real life experience, educational in the 101 sense, right? Meeting people if they just found you. Personality, including swearing and whatever is coming up into your mind, right? It's basically me free-flowing talking to you right now. This is my personality. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. And then supporting your subject matter with other subject matter that is related to it, that you might meet somebody else coming into it from a different background. Now, if you are interested in following this 5-step program that my client, who is this client, is following right now to get sales from her content, get real ROI, and streamline the process to take hopefully less than 10 hours a month is my goal for all my clients, then I invite you to check out the explainer video below. I take on one-to-one clients, and actually for the rest of August, I'm going to be taking on just one more client as I am actually moving out of state. So my time is limited right now, but I am taking on one more client in August. So if you are interested in working with me for 5 weeks in a row directly, just personalized for your business and getting your content out of your way and getting real results from your content, sales, email subscribers, whatever your goal is, then definitely check out that video below. Thank you guys so much again for watching today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!